Hi, we are live from Oulu, Finland, and our guest today is Kenneth, who has been living for 30 years in Finland, and he's uh, created a blog, Tundra Tabloids. So, hello, Kenneth.
Hello? Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yeah, great to have you over here.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Could you tell our audience something about yourself, like who you are and what you do?
Okay. I'm a expat American. Been living here in Finland for 30 years. Moved here back in '87. I'm a machinist by trade, and got a family, normal life. I wish I could do other things other than center on Islam, which I absolutely get sick of doing. Um, I love books. I love music. I love walking my dogs. I love my family and friends and so forth. I just want a normal life. And these times have been forced upon us, and we're compelled to do something. So, anyways, my blog has been running for since 2005, late October, I believe, September, October 2005. And I first started out as a pro-Israel blog and dealing with fake news way back then. So fake news for me is nothing new. And totally irrelevant what other people think about Israel's situation. That's not what's being discussed now, and that's just the genesis of where I start. And then I got involved with counter jihad, or defenders of classical liberalism, as I like to put it. But counter jihad and being against Islamization and so forth. And so it was kind of like a Rubicon I had to cross. More of this than which means less of that, or how do I strike a balance? And later on, I kind of figured that one dovetails off the other because it's a jihad against everybody. And we go blogging every day for the last 12 years, you know. And once you start doing that, it just becomes an everyday thing. And you would think that after a few years that things would probably settle down, and you can look 10 years ago in my blog and still see basically the same type of situations that you're posting about, just different places, times, and dates. But that's the beginning of my career as a blogger.
And you've been following this situation in Finland and other Nordic countries for a long time. So do you ever feel any hopelessness about the situation with things going as they are?
Well, it's good that you said that. Well, I was at the first counter jihad conference in Brussels, representing Finland. Sorry, but I was the go-to guy because there wasn't anybody blogging in English at the time that I knew of, on Islamization, on Islam itself, in English, from Finland. And so I was asked to attend. And one of the things that I wrote in my introduction, my speech, everybody gave a speech about what's the situation in their countries. And there was like about 10, 15 countries represented there, and also from the States. And one of the things I said is that, from my perspective, Europe will, the way Finland goes, may very well depict how the rest of Europe goes. Because at that time, Finland was still very low on the totem pole of Muslim migration, problems resulting from that. People that I was going to other conferences in, let's say, Denmark, and they're saying, "How in the world did you guys keep your immigration low? Well, we've got like 3 times, 10 times the amount of what you have." And my point being is that from an American's point of view, I'm looking at how Finland differs from, let's say, Sweden, from Norway, from Denmark, and so forth. And I think that Finland is pretty unique I'll try to make this a Reader's Digest version because I don't want to keep going, too much on one part. But to give it a shortened version, that Finnish identity and nationalism, Finnish identity is very strong, at least at that time. So much so that, for example, in this town that I live in, my son, when he graduated, the graduating class marched with 2 Finnish flags, 2 rows of students, 2 big Finnish flags flying, and they walked to the cemetery, which is the war memorial cemetery that's in front of the church, and laid all of their roses at that statue. And I said, wow, you would not see this in Sweden, you would not see this in Norway, probably not in Denmark. That was in the back of my mind when I was making my speech up. I said, national identity spans across the political spectrum here. And if that goes, then the last bastion of strong identity, of what it means to be a Finn, is gone. And what does that say for the rest of Europe? Finland is the last bastion of this. So that was in my thinking when I looked that up. But yeah, I mean, I've been following these things for a long time, and I think I'm pretty much Finnish-ized. My family surely is, and regardless of how many years I live here, I will still be an American citizen, even a Finnish citizen, dual citizenship, which I got after I really thought about the issues. Sorry, but dual citizenship is in many corners is kind of like a hot topic. But I will always be an American living in Finland, and even though I have Finnish citizenship, so I still consider myself Finnish national, but I'm not a Finn. It doesn't make me a Finn because I wasn't born here. And it pisses me off when these people, thinking that, well, that as soon as you step across, and touch soil, you become a Finn. And no, it's a long process. Assimilation. Anyways, that's the Reader's Digest version of that one.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that we are actually offered by the media these, for example, Somalis in Finnish hockey shirts, Somalis who barely can speak understandable Finnish, and we have presented these people as if they are Finnish. Okay, look at this guy, he's wearing the Finnish hockey team's shirt and he has the crest lion in his necklace, so look at how Finnish he is. Of course, these people don't turn Finnish by walking over the border. I wouldn't be a Somali if I moved to Somalia. I would never be one of them.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous that we are being offered this purely ideological concept of what it means to be a Finn. Like there's no actual ethnicity of Finns. Like there's no real identity behind it. Like it's a club anyone can just join.
Well, it does take a while to get one's footing here and to understand and obviously understand English and getting involved in the culture. It takes a long time, but I mean it's just propaganda. It is just pure propaganda that people want to force upon you that because somebody reaches your soil, that they automatically become what you hope they would become. And that's why it's so important that you have charge of your own borders. You have responsible leaders that actually want to take care of the civil society and not reinvent it according to their own utopian ideology. Same thing's happening in America. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, you mentioned before we started that you see some parallels between what's going on in Finland now and what's going on in the southern border of the USA. Would you like to say something about that?
Sure. I think that the Democrats are taking a page out of the book from the Social Democrats scattered across Europe, and they have chosen to use immigration or migration, illegal crossings, illegal aliens, as their voter base. And they have jettisoned what they call the middle class, which I don't really care for that term because it's a Marxist term, but middle income earners, okay, let's put it that way. And they've rejected them and chosen to go in a different path. They want to have as many illegals as possible that will fill their base, and that's who they see. This is the thing with the welfare state, identity politics. You can't have multiculturalism unless you have identity politics. You can't have this type of problem without having multiculturalism first, which precedes identity politics. And so what the ruling elites or self-anointed ruling elites want is basically to declare us all, that splice and dice us into different groups, and we're always constantly at war with each other. The blacks in America are seeing the writing on the wall, where the Latinos are now going to be the favorite group. And it's just like, you're familiar with Project Runway, correct? Remember the fashion show?
Yeah,
Project
I know.
Runway?
Yeah.
Well, what's the slogan that she uses? One day you're in, and the next day you're not.
Yeah.
There's a good video, a documentary. It's called A Conversation on Race. And I forget the name of the man, but he was basically going through his childhood. Another Reader's Digest short version here. That he was going through, working out the racism that he thought that he had embedded within himself, because he had experienced in school where this teacher basically called all the kids in the class racists. And they used a way to gin it up to where they could only come to one conclusion, the kids themselves, and then he turned and called them racist. So he had this documentary called Conversation About Race. And in one of the segments of it, he was interviewing some black people, black Americans, and they were upset by Latinos. He asked them, "Do you think we have enough Latinos?" And they're saying, "Hell yeah, we got more than enough. It's coming at our expense." See, that is the Achilles heel. That's the pitfall with multiculturalism and this type of identity politics. That one day your group is going to be out. Now here we have the homosexuals and we have the Muslims. Who's going to win out? Are they going to go the way of Pitt Fortum or whatever? Who's his name? Pim, the one who was assassinated in the Netherlands. Pitt Fortum, I think his name is. Yeah. He was a homosexual politician who was murdered by some crazy lefty. But I mean, who's going to win out on that one? You know, you got two identity groups, and they're trying to placate both, and then obviously the one with the more political clout is going to win out. See, you know, this is a whole just rejection of, you know, classical liberalism, the Enlightenment, and this is what we're seeing today, boiling over.
Yes, so your point is that multiculturalism cannot work because the so-called oppressed groups, they don't get along between themselves. And okay, it's easy to say to the white guy that, okay, shut up, you're racist, but they will not take that excuse. And it doesn't work. We have many examples. And
Like take the race war between Latinos and blacks in Los Angeles, or California in general.
But it very well could. It very well could, and that's a scary thing about it. You know, I mean,
they already are like hundreds of gang-related shootings, and they often are between these ethnic groups. They aren't just between different gangs.
This is the balkanization of society. You know, think about it. They're crapping on the nation, the idea of the nation state. All right, and what did the nation state give birth to? Modern societies. It done away with clans and tribes, and they're bringing back multiculturalism, and we're bringing back tribalism into our society. Multiculturalism, and we're back to square one again.
You mentioned that you notice that in Finland there's more nationalism because of the rose at the grave.
Patriotism.
And
as well.
The thing is that in Finland we opened the borders, or this madness started in 1990, which is 15 years after Sweden, and which is 25 years after the US. If I'm not wrong, the US opened its borders in 65.
Yep.
So the people have, in those countries, they have been exposed to this lefty ideology much longer. Of course, the leftist ideology does not equate to this multicultural identity, this ideology. But for example, there was Halla-aho in Denmark, and he said on Facebook that okay, Denmark is a nice country. Here, even the Democrats are against mass immigration. But in Finland, there's a very, very small minority, as in other countries, that are for this. But when you talk about the gang-related crime, you don't even have to go to Los Angeles. You just have to look at Sweden. What happened last night in Sweden? It's complete madness. Even there's tens or hundreds of shootings in Sweden, in Malmö or Stockholm, and when they get shot, they are brought to.
And hand grenades. Don't forget the hand grenades.
Yeah, but that's
the grenade attacks. That's something like you wouldn't believe that grenade attacks are a thing, but in Sweden they actually are.
Grenades compared to hate speech, that's a small issue. But when they are taken to the emergency services, they even there create problems. I have a news article in which the security services are saying that it's way too dangerous to work here at the emergency services in Malmö, Sweden. It's this. Well, it's easily summed up as we bring their problems to our countries.
Yeah. Well, Kent Ekeroth, who I know personally, he was in Finland speaking to the Sweden to the Finns party before they broke up. We can go into that later too if you want to. That's kind of interesting. But he was giving a warning, to them. That was basically the essence of his speech. Don't do what we're doing. What did Halla-aho say? Like about 5 years ago, I think it was on RT-TV, Russian Today TV, and he was saying, we do not want to have smoking suburbs around our city centers. And that's exactly, what the left is actually clamoring for. If you want to have these, open borders with as many people you can shove into Eastern Helsinki, that's exactly what's going to happen. So
it's interesting. You started your blog in 2005.
Yeah.
As you said, it didn't tackle the mass immigration or multicultural problems, but the Israel issue. But everybody's talking about the migrant crisis of 2015, but this shit started a lot earlier. Even in the 90s, you could see these rings of burning ghettos in France, or even in Sweden. There were already these problems growing, and now it's even the only thing that has changed is that there are more second and third generation immigrants, and we have the internet, so we can ourselves broadcast from the places that are concerned.
You can also see the
January.
You can also see
of course.
What were warnings 7-8 years ago are happening now in the streets, and at the time that the warnings were given, they were derided as fomenting violence. That they're hoping for violence. They're saying no. Fjordman, the Norwegian blogger, he was criticized severely, you know, for you're promoting this stuff. You're hoping that no, I'm warning about it. I don't want it to happen. This will happen if you keep going on with these type of policies. But who listens to us, right? The average person does.
Which Norwegian blogger?
Fjordman.
Fjordman, yeah. Fjordman had translated Halla-aho's.
Oh yeah. So, you know, it's, you know,
yeah, and these solutions we are being offered are pretty interesting. That all the time these problems have been growing and growing in Europe, and we are giving the same false solutions all the time. That we just need more openness, we need more tolerance, we need more integration, and these problems will work out. And for example, Somalis commit racist hate crimes at 32 times the rate Finns do. Iraqis commit them at 24 times the rate. And if you ask a leftist, why is that? They said, okay, it's because of Finnish racism that it's forcing these oppressed minorities to compete with each other and be hateful against each other because they are trying to raise their own status in the eyes of the white Finns. But okay, if that's the reason, if it's our racism that's causing it, why are there tribal wars going on as we speak in Afghanistan? Why are there different religious groups fighting in Iraq? Why are the ethnic groups fighting in the Horn of Africa?
I bumped into some Iranians on one of the ferries going between Stockholm and Sweden. I went to Sweden. This was like about 5-6 years ago to see Lars Vilks, you know, the cartoonist who made Mohammed Dog cartoons, and he was having a conference and a panel of speakers and so forth. Anyways, on the way there, I bumped into some Iranians. They were secular Iranians, and they absolutely hated Somalis. They were the most racist. I mean, I was like, wow, you know, they said some of the most foulest things about Somalis. And, you know, I was like, gee, can I get this on camera, please? Can I get this on video? You know, according to leftists, you know, that these people can't be racist at all. Damn, they are. You know, like, wow.
Yeah, Tina also told me that the most racist person she has ever met was an Iraqi or something.
Yes, Iraqi, or the most openly racist, because of course these people, they aren't used to holding it back the way white people are. So they simply say it out loud, like, I used to work in an Iraqi restaurant, and the owner was a very nice guy, and but he was a complete racist, and he was very open about it, because he, of course, didn't need to be wary the way white Finns need to be. So, for example, he once talked about hiring new people, and he said one of the applicants was a Kosovan. And then he said, oh, I'm not going to hire him because all Kosovans are thieves.
Not all. Not all. But maybe that doesn't qualify as racism. It's just a figure of speech.
Overgeneralization, I reckon. But.
Yeah. But Tina brought up the statistics about the hate crimes in Finland, and it is true that the foreign-born commit more hate crimes than Finns, but also you have to look at the quality of the hate crime. Usually a Finn that commits a hate crime, it's someone who subtitles a video, someone who holds a sign saying learn to swim, or who writes a blog article, and that's called a hate crime. But when you look at the minorities causing hate crimes, they are fighting on the streets against each other, calling each other names and so on. So that's but for the leftists, it's the same thing. If you cause violence, it's the same thing as writing, because for them, saying something is an act.
Exactly. Now, this is a good point. Now, this is we can take this and move it along that path, because going back to Fleming Rose when he was speaking here in Helsinki back in was it 2 years ago, that I happened to participate in Helsinki. He made some very, very salient points about words being understood to lead to violence, and that. One second, I got something here. I can let's see here. Okay.
He's a Danish journalist.
Danish journalist. He was the editor of the Jyllands-Posten cultural section, and he's the one who printed the dreaded Muhammad cartoon.
Or this newspaper Jyllands-Posten, they was it 2005 or something?
Something like, yeah.
And
that's sad.
And they wanted to make a series of cartoons, and they basically ordered some cartoons from some cartoonists.
Yeah, well, the genesis of that was that a guy who had a book that he wanted to publish was finding difficulties getting the pictures published, whatever, and he wanted to see if there really was anything to it. So he innocently, naively, he had this contest, and had the pictures from this contest published in his paper in the cultural section, and the rest is history. But he said something something interesting that you just touched on. He said that the laws regarding events that led up to the Holocaust, that triggered the Holocaust, is basically saying that evil words will lead to evil deeds. That if you do not criminalize racist speech or incitement, you will sooner or later have racist violence. And there is a correlation between words and deeds, but I would couch that differently. I would say that.
I have a problem. We cannot hear you, but maybe the audience.
I'm sorry, you can't hear me? Hello? Can you hear me now?
Maybe you have a sound problem. I'm not sure. We cannot hear you.
Oh no.
Do our viewers hear Kenneth?
Our viewers say they can hear.
Okay. Okay, so it's probably on our side.
Maybe refresh the page.
Just a second. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, does it?
Hello, can you hear me now?
We cannot hear you. It's very bizarre.
Oh no.
Maybe if you refresh your browser.
Okay, let me do that.
So yeah, we are live with Kenneth, who is a US citizen who's lived for 30 years in Finland, and he's
okay. Do you hear me now?
writing a blog, Tundra Tabloids.
Do you hear me now?
But for some reason, we cannot hear him.
Hello, testing 1 2 3.
Try now.
Testing 1 2 3.
No.
Oh no. I don't. I didn't do anything. I tell you what. Let me go. I'll go to my my tablet. Look at this. 1 second.
Yeah, sorry to the audience. We cannot, for some reason,
You can't hear me at all. Huh?
hear Kenneth over here, but we're trying to fix the issue.
Okay. If you want me to, I can try and go to this.
But the audience say they can hear us both.
Okay.
It's, okay, the audience can write what Kenneth says, so we can. But it's how can we solve this?
I can try my.
But now I can see the green bar over there. So let's try refreshing one more time.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me now?
We cannot still cannot hear you.
Okay.
Yeah,
1 second.
It's the first time we get this kind of problem.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember this ever happening before. There's some sort of an issue now.
Let's see.
The speakers are on mute. No, they are not. We are trying this with the laptop, and we are also trying this with the TV, but for some reason the audio just doesn't reach us. Mitä me tehdään? What should we do?
I don't know, but is it true that the audience and Kenneth can hear us and the audience also?
Apparently they can. For some reason we cannot. But the Hangouts has been bugging lately weirdly that,
yes.
For example,
Okay, now.
no, still nothing.
Try to say something, Kenneth.
Hello.
Now there's. Okay. Say something.
Hello. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Maybe the audio control somewhere.
Okay, let's try it.
Hold on. Tämä on vissiin mikkänä.
Ei
On.
Miten se on mennyt?
No, miten se on vedetty?
No kun en mä edes koskenut se vaan meni yhtäkkiä itseksi.
Okei, tää löytää ne asetukset, kun ei tuo nyt reagoitu. Niin sieltä alhaalta.
Mistä?
Täältä. Okay, 1 second. We'll figure this out.
Ole rohkea.
And now.
1 second. We'll figure this out.
Se mykistyi silloin, kun...
Let's try refreshing one more time.
Maybe if we restart the laptop. Maybe we need to restart this. We'll be right back.
All right.
So Kenneth, just wait. We'll be.
I'll be right here. Okay, you back? Can you hear
Now,
me?
Okay, we can hear you now.
okay. So
Excellent.
where
Excellent.
did we stay?
Okay.
The audience says it's pretty quiet on this screen. Yeah, sorry for the audio problem. For some reason, our audio failed, but luckily restarting the laptop brought it back.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so we were talking about Fleming Rose, the Danish.
Fleming Rose,
God.
and you hit on a subject. You hit on something. We're talking about words leading to actions, to violence, and he said that in his speech. One of the things. This is just a quote from his speech. He said that it's basically saying that evil words lead to evil deeds. That if you do not criminalize racist speech or incitement, you will sooner or later have racist violence. And one of the things that that I mentioned at that event with some of the people in the hallways were waiting for this event to start and whatever, and that focusing on individuals in the civil society is the wrong emphasis. It should never be looked at individuals like ourselves as possibilities for creating violence. If you look at history, every single genocide, every single massive act against certain minorities has always taken place through the channels of government. And bigger the government, the more likely it will one day be used against individuals in the society. And it's not the individuals that are really the problem. It is the halls of government. And when they focus on whoever and can channel the strength and the might of the government, that's when things start to happen. And so, ironically, if you really want to ensure that minorities are protected, you got to muzzle government, not us. But I think the emphasis is on the wrong party. It's not really on us. It's government, and the more concentrated, the more centralized and concentrated it is, the more dangerous it becomes. And that's why I always like to juxtapose it with the American system, which is supposed to be a decentralization of concentrated power. And unfortunately, it's becoming more and more and more like here, social democracy. If that happens, then it's really going to be nasty.
The publication of those cartoons in Denmark caused two minor problems. One was the massive riots around Europe and the Middle East, and the second one was that Danish products were boycotted by rich countries there. And of course, you could argue that you don't have to. You can restrain from publishing useless cartoons, because in the end, what do these cartoons bring us? But if you go that way, then you can censor anything. You can say that, okay, that group will get offended if we publish those pictures. Mm-hmm. That other group will get offended if we do this. And so you must not. You just need to do what you do and have complete freedom of speech. Yeah. Because if they get offended from those pictures, they can move out of Denmark.
Yeah.
The publication, the cartoons were in Finland published by one organization, Suomen Sisu, and that caused.
Wasn't there a small Christian paper outlet somewhere in Finland that? And Ville, and also Ville is something, I forget his name. Ville
Ranta.
Yeah, Ranta. Yeah. He published something.
Yeah, it's bizarre because he's an extreme leftist idiot. But
he didn't know what he was getting involved with. He kind of like.
Yeah, he was too young, so he didn't know that. It's illegal to do so.
Yeah, but it was interesting to see the Finnish politicians react to the entire cartoon mess with our minister saying that we fully support the free speech, and this same thing happened with Charlie Hebdo.
Yeah.
After that attack, Finnish ministers were going around saying this is a terrible attack against free speech, and they pretended to be free speech activists, and none of them mentioned that if these Charlie Hebdo drawings or the Muslim cartoons, these Muhammad cartoons, were published in Finland and someone filed a criminal report about them, that person who published them would get convicted of breaching of religious peace.
Right.
So these ministers pretend as if you wouldn't get punished in Finland for that. Of course you would.
Of course you would. Of course you would. And I think it's, I mean, the Matti Vanhanen, he rolled over like my dog, you know, just rolled over on his back with his legs up and apologizing to the Muslim world, and just so pathetic, absolutely pathetic. And then the Helsinki Sanomat, Hufvudstadsbladet, what's the in Tampere, Amulehti. All of them. What did the Helsinki Sanomat do? They took a picture of a picture. They put a picture of the dreaded cartoons on top of other publications, then took a picture of that so they could say that they didn't publish the picture. It's just insane.
In contrast, the Danish politicians did not apologize to anything.
No,
they just said that this is the way it is in Denmark and just deal with it. But the problem in Finland is that our establishment, they copy everything from Sweden.
Yeah.
And Sweden is a country in which they jail cartoonists. I don't know if you've heard of Dan Park.
Sure, yeah, sure.
Yeah, he got 6 months in jail.
Yeah.
For it.
So there was a chief justice that sits on the Supreme Court in the United States, and he's long since passed away. He said something in regard to a free speech case, and he said that about hate speech, quote unquote hate speech. It said the answer is always more speech, not enforced silence. And this is my answer to the Jari Tapolin's and the Jussi Huhtelers and all the rest of them, and the lawmakers that make these insane laws. That the answer to speech that you don't like is more speech. There's no such thing as hate speech. There's speech that you don't like. But the category of hate speech is just a category used to torment people with whom you disagree politically, usually.
Yeah,
Yes.
this willingness to silence other people, saying some speech is hate speech, it simply proves that these people really don't have any faith in liberalism or democracy.
No.
They believe that if people are allowed to say what they want, then there will be no real discussion about it, and genocides will occur, even though, of course, they as liberals or self-acclaimed liberals should see this issue simply as the open marketplace of ideas, that they should see that, okay, they have their views, we disagree with them, but we counter them with our own ideas. But they don't believe in that at all.
But just for our international audience, Kenneth mentioned two names, Jari Taponen and Jussi Huhtela. So they are Finnish police officers that are paid to tweet on Twitter, and they are complete retards. Alex Jones on Infowars did a small thing on them, but maybe
I didn't know that.
we have on our Finnish live streams we have talked a lot about this. We have even had a show in which because these hate speech police officers on Twitter, they have spawned many fake accounts or parody accounts, and these parody accounts are so credible that many politicians and big guys have mistaken them, and it has created a discussion that is this okay to make parody of police officers. So we made once a live show on Tina's Finnish-speaking channel, in which we took the parody accounts and the real accounts, and we asked the audience there's the live comment section, and we asked, do you think that this is a real police officer or is this a parody? And like it was 50% of the time people didn't know which was it a real police officer or not. We will probably show some of they have even.
And it gets crazy all the time that you always think that you've seen the worst of them, that they cannot get any more crazy. But then, of course, Jari Taponen, he always tops himself with some new tweet in which he says that, okay, jihadism has been demonized in the Western discussion. Education is good for terrorists. Let's just place terrorists in middle schools.
His latest tweet was to share a Helsingin Sanomat article on there's this organization Hope Not Hate, which is it's Antifa, and one of their guys infiltrated the so-called alt-right in London and the US, I think, and he made a report, and well, you can find the report on Hope Not Hate, that something. And
it was a Swede, right?
Yeah,
it was a Swede.
And Helsingin Sanomat translated a small part of that report, and this idiot Jari Taponen retweeted that today, saying that you can see that the far right is very bad, and it's this idiot. I don't know. We've asked him many times, are you serious, or are you just doing it for the money? Because do you really believe the shit that you are posting? And I have, when I was the last time in Helsinki, July the 1st, I was covering, amongst others, the Helsinki Pride, and from there I heard from some friends that Jari Taponen is for real. He doesn't. He's not forced to do it. He really believes in his shit, and many police officers, or not all, but many police officers hate him for his views because he's driving his own agenda, Eunice,
I need to break you off, but I had a thought that the latest tweet that he had put out over that people are believing that. How did he put it? One second. Let me collect my thoughts here. He basically that these parody accounts. There's a concerted effort by nefarious sources who are trying to undermine the credibility of the Finnish police force. Am I correct? He said something along those lines, correct?
Yeah, that's what he says and what the mainstream media wants to. But everybody that is talking to him is like, they are normal people, concerned citizens.
And what he doesn't get is that we are not against the police department per se, the rank and file. What we're against is him.
Yeah, and that's what we.
And all these other idiots, they're absolutely fools. And I said it, they're fools, and they are beyond parody. I mean, it is so Orwellian, especially for. I mean, I've lived here for many years, but it just creeps me out to know that there's some guy, no, don't do it. Don't press that button. Are you kidding me?
But this Jari Taponen, this year there was a very long protest by the asylum seekers on the railway square in Helsinki, and there were nationalists protesting against them. So he shut down the nationalist protest because they are a threat. And I asked for a permit to protest for the independence of Congo that was on June the 30th, and he denied it. He called me and he said, "No, you cannot protest for that."
Because you're affiliated with the Finland First people.
Okay, so I said I'm not affiliated, but he said, "No, you are national threat, the public enemy number one." But this same idiot says that you can put terrorists in schools.
In schools, yeah. I mean, this guy is just so. He's just so. He's got a strange ideology.
He's a fucking retard.
Yeah, and what can you say more about this guy? But one thing. Here's a good point. When you were accosted by the police because you were filming the gathering of people who should never have gathered there, been allowed to gather there, and then harass people who were legally there with a permit to give their point of view and their demonstration and so forth. With the police, they say that that it's false to call them polpo, right? The politicized police, right? But look at what they do. And they get their marching orders from on high. The police, the rank and file police, they're forced to do whatever they do. Now, the guy who arrested you, this guy was a true believer. This guy was a true believer who arrested you. But for the American audience, or for the international audience that's watching this, that all Eunice was doing was standing there with a camera a good distance away on the other side of the police vans. So basically he was in a no man's land, right? He didn't cross the line that they had put in. And yet he was arrested for what? Filming in a public space. And you look at what they do on a regular basis. And I was there with you. I saw you in Eastern Helsinki. This was a couple of years ago when Mona Walters was there, giving her speech.
It was last year. September.
It goes by so quickly.
Yeah.
So I was there, and right across the street were these people with their whistles, their drums, and their horns being loud, so that you basically have to shout into the microphones for the rest of the audience to hear, correct? Now, that should never be allowed. Now, here's something I saved this. I have this tab open here with Ayn Rand, and it's about civil disobedience. And anybody listening here who are not familiar with this, just Google Ayn Rand and civil disobedience, right? The point that she was making in this piece is that you're not in pursuit of your own civil rights or a cause that you deem to be righteous. You cannot trample on the rights of others in pursuit of that goal. One's rights cannot cancel out the civil rights of the other. So, for example, Erkki Tuomioja, who's the former Finnish foreign minister and longtime political hack. He's a hardcore Marxist, and he plays the part. He's got the scruffy beard, he's got the Lenin hat, the whole works. That's Erkki Tuomioja. So when he was a student, in Helsinki, he commandeered a building, right? The police should have never allowed these students to commandeer a building because it's a public space and is a violation of other students' rights, let alone the staff of the building. So, for example, when Ronald Reagan in California was the governor, and the Berkeley students didn't want something, I forget what the actual was the cause of it all, but they were taking over buildings, and basically he said that you cannot violate the rights of others in pursuit of goals that you deem righteous. The mistake of the police and the politicians in Berkeley at the time was that they allowed them to assemble in the first place. So one's rights can't cancel out another person's rights. And so what the police are doing each and every time Finland First organizes, or just an anti-Islamization organization rally is formed, they allow people to disrupt, to cancel out people's free speech. They do it all the time. And it's wrong. That's politicized. So when they sit there and thump their chest and say, we're not politicized. You're trying to delegitimize the Finnish police force. I say, bunk. Bunk. You guys are politicized from the top, and it reaches down to a certain level, and you do it repeatedly.
Yeah, the event in which Mona Walter was on September the 10th last year, and there were these whistleblowing idiots.
I got the interview her too, by the way.
Yeah, I interviewed her also after the rally, and the next day I was in Itäkeskus, Eastern Helsinki, and I was just playing music there, and the police told me that you have to stop because you are not holding any speeches. I said, so what? I paid for the music license. I have the right to be. Said, no, you have to stop. And I said, what about the others, the Antifa there, that they do not have a permit? Yeah, but they have the freedom of speech, but we do not have. And it's every time the same thing, that when we want just to speak or do anything, it's these civil disobedience guys. They are always coming there to disrupt any intelligent speech, and the police lets them do that. And when I confront the police saying that no, you are biased, you are not doing what the law says, they tell me that fuck off and you can make a complaint. I do a complaint, the complaint comes back, they said no, there was no problem. I was 2 years ago in the library here in Oulu, northern Finland. I was just sitting there and they called the police to throw me away. I made a complaint, the police did nothing about it, and they talk all the time about this civil disobedience, but it's bullshit. The last time the debate started with this civil disobedience was when the Jyväskylä riot started.
Yeah,
they were trying to take a family of 3 Afghanis to deport them. There was a massive riot. The police was taken as hostage. It lasted for 7 hours, and now the family has been freed. And they talk about civil disobedience. I cannot even sit in a fucking library, and I'm a criminal for them.
This is politicized police force, and this is the problem when you have a national police force. Correct me if I'm wrong. They all, whether they're from all the different areas of Finland, Kuopio, Pohjanmaa, Turku, Keski-Suomi, Central Finland, Helsinki, they all fall under the command structure of one unit. There's one guy above them all. Now, in the United States, it's diversified. It is you've got 1 million police officers. They belong to like tens of thousands of different police forces, and they're all independent. So you will have politicized police force, but it doesn't have the effect that a politicized police force in Helsinki will have on the rest of the whole police force in Finland. That's the problem with having a nationalized police force. And so you can't get rid of these guys. Now I love the beauty in the American version way of doing things, that they actually have to run for office. Can you imagine Taponen and Huhtila and all these other guys trying to run for office here? Who knows, they might get in, but still, they have to at least run.
Yeah, the election system would be great if we had the sheriff system and the prosecutors would be elected. So then they would actually somehow represent the people. But now they are just hired and they can work there even if all of their colleagues hate them. They can still rise in position.
Like bureaucratic hacks. The bureaucratic hacks.
Yeah, and the media is with them. The media is supposed to be independent, but
well, it's an iron triangle.
Taponen has been. He has at least 4 articles by the same journalist in Uusi Suomi, and the journalist is with him. She writes the articles as if he's the victim. He's not.
And this is completely anti-democratic because these cops, they were never elected. And the people who have supported them, who have said that, okay, these cops are simply smeared, they aren't political police in any way, they are also unelected officials like Päivi Nerk, the chief of staff in the Interior Ministry.
Yeah.
And some elected officials, like Atte Kaleva, have raised concerns about cops tweeting politicized stuff. And still, these unelected officials are supporting the cops and saying they did nothing wrong. So are these unelected officials our leaders now?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is very irresponsible of them, and they are breaching their authority completely by trying to talk over elected officials.
It's a very immoral system. And I just fear for what happens down the road. You know, in the United States, the same way. It's heading in that direction. But there's a lot of roadblocks, though. There's a lot of barriers that straitjackets that keep them. You know, the first it's what, and the system of federalism and you know, decentralization is one of the main things that the left in the United States are trying to, and pretty much succeeding to some extent, you know, to override. But they can't get, you know, through voting and legislating, they go through the courts. And so you have black men, or black robed people, you know, basically issuing decrees that run counter to the Constitution, the American Constitution. And you've got this type of oligarchy type of system where, you know, they legislate through the courts. But still, it's much more difficult there than it is here. So what do you see here? You're getting the shaft, and the whole system is rigged against you. So what do you do?
Yeah, and it's ridiculous that these people even have the guts to claim that there is no politicized police, that it's simply a smear campaign. Like, think about Thomas Elfgren, who is in the Central Police, which is basically the Finnish FBI. He also sits as a board member in Rasmus, the most irrational anti-racist group there is. And he himself has adopted 6 grown men from Rwanda. Can you believe a person like that isn't a bit far left?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think it's just like the police are behaving the exact same way as the media, believing that they are not biased. And that is the biggest ruse ever perpetrated on the free society, that the media is not biased, let alone the police department being politicized. Especially with a nationalized police force, as well as a homogeneous media that runs on consensus politics. You have consensus-run politics in the political sphere, and that filters over into the media. They basically churn out the same type of articles and so forth. And there you have it. It's one thing piled on top of the other. So it's very immoral. It's very immoral. And they may have laws on the books saying that you're guilty of this inciting hate speech, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't make it morally right. They may have the law on their side, but then again, so did the southern states during segregation. They had all kinds of laws on their side, and yet they victimized Black Americans for decades. For decades. Yeah, there was courts. There was justice in the South, but the judge could bang his gavel on the desk and say, "You're guilty. You're off to jail." But how moral were the laws? See, those are two different things. Just because it's a law doesn't mean it's moral.
Yeah, and we have all these different layers of the system all supporting each other. As you mentioned, the media backs, the left-wing media backs up the left-wing police. And then there are these left-wing unelected officials who have a lot of power, and it's clear that they are working for an agenda. For example, the officials in Migri, the Finnish immigration office, when Finland tightened its immigration laws so that one type of asylum the humanitarian protection, which is given to people who don't really need an asylum, but there's some sort of a humanitarian reason to take them in. When that sort of asylum system was stopped, there were no more asylums on humanitarian basis. Before that law, even before that law came in, the immigration officials started handing out more of the actual asylums. So they sort of preemptively took into account that, okay, we have this new law coming up, but we want to take as many of these migrants in as possible. So let's not give them humanitarian protection. Let's just claim they need an asylum and give them more as actual asylum places, these 4-year residence permits. So it was obvious that the immigration officials they wanted these people in, so they changed their tactics when the laws changed, so that they wouldn't have to reject these people.
Yeah, and when you confront them with obvious evidence, clear evidence that they are doing this, they just say no. No, you are wrong, or they do not answer to you. Today or last week there was this Petteri Orpo, the interior minister in 2015, who led the 32,000 Iraqis from Sweden and did not do anything. And his wife was working at the Finnish immigration office, and now she has she's a lawyer. And last week this idiot wrote a Facebook post whining about the hate speech that his wife has gotten, and he said that no, my wife does not, even if she's a lawyer, she does not help asylum seekers. Well, today I received an email from the court in Helsinki saying that yes, there is at least one case in which this idiot's wife has been present.
Right.
So they are all liars, and you cannot. And this is they claim to be liberal. They claim to be open-minded. But if you confront them on specific issues, they go full communist. They will not talk to you. They will get very angry and very fascist. And it's
just like that cop that right before he arrested you, the hairs in the back of my neck stood up. Like, wow.
Yeah, that cop. If I were a stoner. I don't mean by stoner. I mean a guy who stones cops, not
right.
not smoking stuff. But
there's two different interpretations of that. But that's
yeah. But using the context that in Sweden, the migrants or the second generation, third generation, and so on, they call the police for fun. They start fires, and when the police arrives, they just start stoning them. If I were that kind of guy, that idiot who arrested me, he would be sorry, you are a good guy, and so on. I saw a video from Sweden in which the Swedish police arrests the resistance movement, who call themselves Nazis themselves.
yeah.
So they probably are National Socialists.
They probably are.
But they were bleeding from their heads, and the police used very violent tactics against them. They put them on the floor, and they were throwing them on the floor. But when they go to the sensitive suburbs, they are just doing nothing there.
They simply watch.
So,
like in the Rinkeby riots last spring, the cops were there when the riot happened, but they were simply staying on the sides and watching it happen. Then once the crowd already had dispersed, they sort of went in like insurance men's insurancemen to check out what sort of damage was done, but they did nothing to stop the actual rioting.
Yeah, and why I mentioned this is because I find it. You also told this, but many people say that it's just the big guys in the police force and the people, the police who are on the street, they are just following orders.
Yeah.
But I'm not so sure. I think there's lots of police officers that just like to do this, and for some reason also they have been brainwashed to let the brown people do whatever they do. But if you have nationalists on the street, then you can go hard on them because they will not fight against the police. And well, you have to all this frustration that is growing, you have to let it go somewhere, and the nationalists are there to provide you with some people that are smashed by the media and everybody, so even the police can hit them on camera. The police officers saw the guy filming, and they just film us. Look at us. We are hitting this innocent guy for nothing, and they knew that there would be nobody complaining about that. So they want to have this possibility to hit people who do bad things, but the bad guys now are the ones who are going against the government's craziness and this general madness. I'm not saying that the neo-Nazis and the skinheads are. I don't know what was their crime in that. I just think that it's. For me, it looked like they were just standing there and they had wrong ideas.
There's a clear marching orders from above. I mean, I'm sure that there are some cops that actually like it, like to do something like that. I just like to take a general view that appeal to the goodness of most people, that they would not like to be doing that. They're probably upset that they have to pester people that really shouldn't be bothered. But I mean, but anyways, Sweden has been a very, very corrupting force in Finland. And then the European Union is a very corrupting force in Finland. It's just relentless. And a small state like this, it's very easy to see how things get to such a situation. So, really,
Yeah, and the other Nordic countries, for some reasons, or a lot of people in them, have just accepted this idea that we all should mimic Sweden. Especially in Finland, you see a lot of that or when politicians propose something ridiculously stupid, they say, okay, but look, Sweden is already doing it, so we must follow their example. As if Sweden was somehow a model state in all aspects of life, and we should copy them at every turn. And actually in Norway, the immigration minister, what was her name?
Sylvie Listhaug, maybe.
Yeah, Listhaug. She said that Norway shouldn't follow the model of Sweden. So apparently in Norway too, there are these people who say that a Swedish example should be followed. So I'm not really sure where all this originates. Like, at what point did we decide that Sweden is the country to copy?
Well, in Finland we have this minority, the Swedes, who cause problems because they control lots of politics, and they have been in the government. They have forced us the Swedish language as a second language, which is not spoken by anybody. I don't know anybody who speaks Swedish in Finland. I have never seen anybody who really speaks Swedish. It's just some very basic sentences that if you go to Sweden with those sentences, nobody understands you there. They say, sorry, do you speak English? And we can talk. But of the Nordic countries, really the only one that is mimicking Sweden is Finland. if you look at Norway, they have a very healthy debate on immigration compared to Sweden. They have even the Swedish state TV and NRK. They have gone to the immigrant ghettos and published very interesting footage from there. This would be impossible in Sweden. Denmark also, the politicians there, they are very straightforward. They say that, and they have a lot stricter immigration rules. And even though they also are part of the EU, they still have some common sense to say no to stuff. For example, 2 weeks ago they sent 160 soldiers to control the border at the southern border, to let the police officers do other tasks. But in Sweden, it's and in Finland we are following that madness, and that's something. Well, we cannot do much as local politicians here. We cannot do much. We can just do spread information in the most credible way, because of course there are lots of people who are talking against this, but if you do not present the information in a credible way, it turns people against you.
Yeah.
And that's one problem.
Well, I mean, that's understandable too. I mean, I think
yeah, of course.
Factual information. I don't go for conspiracy theories. I mean, outlandish conspiracy theories. But my mother told me when I was a child, because I wanted to do what everybody else was doing. It was, Kenny, if everybody's jumping off the bridge, you want to jump off too? So why Sweden going to hell in a handbasket? Why should we follow suit? So I still think that we're still in a better situation than what's happening in Sweden, but we do not lack people who want to go the way of Sweden. And I'm just hoping that we have enough politicians here who say no.
Yeah, but the thing is that I'm pretty sure that in Sweden there is also a big debate. But if you look from, let's say, from Sweden, you look at this Finnish situation, do they hear about us? Do they know that, or do they just look at the politicians and they look at our crazy politicians and they say, yeah, Finland is going the same way as Sweden? The only reason that Finland has a better situation is that we started this madness 15 years after Sweden, and we had much smaller portions. But now, since we have this big population of immigrants and their birth rate is so high that even if we now close the borders, we would get the same suburbs as Sweden has. So someone in the comment section says that I talk too much, so I will let go on. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, once again, the problems that we're facing has everything to do with what I call statism, which has produced the welfare state. It's produced, it all goes down to one thing: multiculturalism and multicultural based upon identity politics, like you said before. And I don't see how Finland can adjust course very quickly. I mean, what do you see? I mean, are we headed towards the abyss? There's nothing that we can do. I mean, I do see that people here, the common rank and file, they don't like what's happening. I don't know. Maybe the Finnish party still has some spark left in it. They're the only ones that I see that are trying to safeguard our interests. But I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very glad that the Finns party had that change in regime, that now it has actual nationalists in charge. But of course, it would be the best if there were at least two nationalist parties, because when there's only one, it's easy for them to get lazy, because you know that nationalist voters, they are never going to vote for the Greens or the Social Democrats or other leftists or multiculturalists. So you can be secure with their votes. But if there are at least two nationalist parties, then they always have to fear that the voters might run to the other party if they start getting too lazy and are not strict enough in their opinions. So I hope that in Finland there can become another nationalist party, maybe one more radical than the Finns party, so that we would get that right balance and keep the Finns party honest.
Yeah, yeah. I think with the leadership, the present leadership of the Finns party, I think it can't go wrong. I mean, Soini was complete disappointment. It was complete disappointment. You know, I was in Lapland when the first waves were coming across from Tornio, and I went to where you guys were, you know, to the bus station there, but there wasn't anybody there at the time, and so we went up, you know, continued our journey. But you know, I was thinking of, gee, you know, now is the time for Timo Soini, you know, who's now the, believe it or not, I said to myself at the time, that he's the actual foreign minister, that he's going to do something. He's actually going to do something. I can't wait to hear what he's going to do. And he just folded like a cheap suit. He wouldn't even think about bolting from the government. No, you do not. At a time of crisis, you do not leave the front line. You know, like, what the heck are you talking about? You idiot. Yeah. I knew that at that point, the support for the Finns party went into the cellar. You can't build a party on the premise that you're going to safeguard your borders, and then when it happens in spades, you fall on yourself like a wounded leprechaun, and limping around, and you can't do nothing. You can stay in the government regardless of whatever. And you're going to swallow everything.
Well, technically, the Finnish-Swedish border is a EU border, so it's not.
So no. Hey, listen, Eunice. Yeah. I'm of the opinion the Ken strategy coming out here now. I'm of the opinion that if EU leaders are subverting their own laws, whether the Schengen Agreement and all these, the refugee or asylum seeker comes to the first country, he's got to be there. You know, you can't go shopping around and come all the way up the chain and then decide you're going to cross the border into Finland or Norway or Sweden and so forth. We're under no moral obligation to follow laws if the rest of Europe are not following the laws. Why in the world is Finland with like a kid in school raising its hand like, oh teacher, I got the answer, you know, and want to fulfill all the laws to the letter. When nobody else is doing it is insane.
Because it's our way of doing the things, but it doesn't work in the EU context because there are many different cultures and so on.
I know, but you can rattle your sword. It's called saber rattling. You know, I'm going to bolt from the government if we do not do something right now, right away. And they would pressure Sweden from allowing people come through Denmark and so forth.
Yeah, but if you look at our politicians, they're all retarded. But I was just saying that it was not Soini's task to close that border because the Swedish-Finnish border being an inner border, it's the interior minister's thing, which at the time was Petteri Orpo, and we confronted that idiot on spring. He was in our hometown, and Tina asked him, that why didn't you close the borders? And he said, oh, we talked about this already. So
yeah, but as a tactician, you know, you have to speak to your base.
Yeah.
That was the time. That was the moment. If he would have, you know, did some saber rattling and threatened the bolt from the government and saying, even if he could not do it, that I want to close the borders, that would send a signal down the line, even to Sweden and so forth, into his base, and the people would have responded to him.
yeah, but acting also that way, that yeah, we are just following the EU law and so on. It appeals to some people that yeah, we are doing the right thing, we are following the law and so on. And I don't think that these Petteri Orpo and all these politicians in Finland, I don't think they are so honest as they claim to be. It's just that for them it's okay, because there are some EU laws that for some reason are not followed in Finland. For example, the alcohol thing, the car thing. You cannot import a car tax-free as the EU orders us, or the alcohol problem, or the
5.5%.
yeah, they are debating that because in Finland we cannot sell alcohol over 4.7%. So it's, but they if we were following the EU law, we could order vaping equipment, we could order nicotine, we could order cars, we could order alcohol, there would be the free trade,
the free market.
but these idiots are following this, and the migrant stuff it's just that they bought the asylum centers and they rent it to the state.
Yeah,
they get money. That's obvious. There is no other. There's on our live chat. There's Eddie who sent us $5. There's the possibility of supporting us through the live chat. I don't know if you are reading it, but
no, I'm not.
There was one Richard from Nevada who said hello.
Okay.
A big fan of ours, apparently. So there's if you open the YouTube stream, you on the right there's the live comment section, and you can follow it. But that was just I'm talking too much. Sorry, I'll let you. So, but one question, maybe, I don't know.
Sure.
We can continue on this topic, or just you moved to Finland in '87, and so maybe if you want, you can tell us how was Finland back in the days, and how it differs from today, and what were the reasons that you moved from here, and where exactly from the did you move directly from the US? And
yeah, I moved directly from the I moved directly from the US, and I'll just give a general roundabout overview. That I moved from the States, moved from Florida, but actually from Michigan. And I moved in '87, and this is my wife. And the way things in Finland were back then, I wish it was the way it is now. I mean, I wish it was now the way it was back then. That every year you have to go to the local police department, Nimismies, and you have to file for your residency visa and so forth. Have your passport stamped, and you weren't able to. I believe at that time you weren't able to vote in local elections, and I wish it was like that again. I would reverse everything today, right now, back the way it was back then. And I thought it was kind of strange back then, but over the years, you do some research, you philosophically you look at things, and I've come to the conclusion that I think even though I have dual citizenship now, I might not have gotten dual citizenship now if I hadn't. And reason, just pure philosophical reasons, that you can only be loyal to one country. You know, if you have dual citizenship, it kind of throws things into question mark. Now, I mean, of course, I'm loyal to Finland, and I've lived here for 30 years and so forth. But especially nowadays, I wouldn't trust anybody coming with dual citizenship from the Islamic world that they're going to be faithful, they're going to become Finnicized, because what happens is they go into their own little communities. Like, say, I remember when I first moved here, I was learning the language. I was so happy that I was able to go to the grocery store and back home again without talking to a single person, because I was so scared about opening my mouth to speak Finnish, right? So that took 2 or 3 years to get over that. But if you are basically running into an area, you are living in an area, similar type of people, you are not going to pick up the local, the host culture, let alone the language very easily. And you're not going to be thinking like you're a Finn. You're going to be basically in a subculture. And in Eastern Helsinki and any other city that many immigrants are living in, and they're all living in basically in a clustered area, there's no assimilation going on. We're just kidding ourselves. I mean, I have my own personal experience. And these people, probably, I get channels from the States. I'm sure that they're getting stuff directly from Syria and Iraq and wherever else, Anyways, but the way things were back then was very, very regulated. And there was no language courses being taught. Basically, I went to the University of Jyväskylä to pick a couple nights a week for Finnish, right? And it was the university. And I really wasn't supposed to be there. It was only for university students. And none of the university students there really cared to learn any Finnish. So basically, there's just a lot of talking in the class the whole time. And so forth. But I was struggling, but I wanted to learn. And so, but there's nothing offered. But yet, I learned and became part of society. I mean, my children were Finns. And, but I didn't have any special handout to me. I didn't line up at an office saying, "Gee, where do I sign up for this special branch of the migrant office, and how are you going to help me, and what group can I join?" To voice concerns and what my wish list for what I want from society was. There wasn't anything like that. And I wouldn't do it even if there was.
And imagine if you had instead come over here as a migrant today. It would basically mean that everything would be given to you without even asking. And there would be these crazy Finnish women who would treat you like you were a child. They would pamper you. They would even take you to some...
Not if you're a US citizen.
Yeah,
only
but if he was a migrant.
Yeah.
As it.
But he's a migrant.
We have seen what these women do. They bake cinnamon buns for these migrants. And there was, for example, one woman in Kirkkonummi who was called the cinnamon bun hugger because she said that she would greet all new migrants with freshly baked cinnamon buns and hugs. And it then turned out that pretty soon the woman's teenage daughter was harassed by migrants, and they had to move to another town because the girl was too afraid to move around in Kirkkonummi with the asylum seeker housing center there. So that put a stop to her cinnamon bun project.
But yeah. But what was there a specific reason? Maybe you told, but I didn't hear it. That you just chose to move to Finland?
No, it was for my wife.
Your wife. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, because the audio is pretty poor. But yeah. So.
But I'm a big believer in Barcelona, Tabloids. I mean, been in Rome, we live like the Romans, and if you choose to join a certain society, you have to accept the existing norms and values of that society. Unfortunately, there's very much similarities between American society and Finnish society. There was always a plus, So, but demanding people to change for you, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that back in the late 1800s or early 1900s, the Tatar community, as well as the Jews from Tsarist Russia came over, and they assimilated. There wasn't any grandmas waiting for them with cinnamon buns. There wasn't this or that and the other. They just worked. They assimilated and were basically unrecognizable from anybody else.
Yeah, that's. But probably the reason was there are many reasons. First of all, there were not so many, so they couldn't form a.
It's like 1,300, 1,500 max for each group.
And they always bring up this that we had Tatars and there are Muslims, so Finland can absorb an unlimited amount of Muslims, but they were a very small group, and also the thing was that since there was no cinnamon bun retards, they had to integrate. Because
the same thing that stays here is that leftists there and dough-headed rhinos, Republican in name only politicians, would use this as an example that, well, we've always been a nation of immigrants. We have accepted everybody from around the world. We should not now change course. But that's disingenuous. It's not actually how it worked back then. There was no welfare state. And yes, many came in, but there was no laws affecting them at the time. Okay, there's nothing on the books. And then when they were on the books, then it was a system of, how would they call it? It was requirements. There was a lottery of sorts, and that only certain people were being called, be invited to come as immigrants to the country. They had to be sponsored. They had to be people that had means, in other words, money. It was a sponsor, that they would not be a burden to society. And it was controlled, in that there would be times of peak, and then there would be times where you dip. And you made mention of it early on, in 1965, that's when everything changed. And where chain migration also was added with it. And it's completely changed everything. You have to have managed immigration so that there is integration and then eventually assimilation. And assimilation, if you just let me go on just a little bit more, assimilation to me is not somebody who loses their own cultural identity. Assimilation to me is that they accept all the norms, the rules. For example, in Finland, you basically accept Finnish society as it is. Now, as an American, I can celebrate my own ethnic Americanism myself, whether I choose to or not. And it does not conflict, it does not impose, it does not do anything on Finnish society. Just like in the United States, you have Irish celebrating the Irish heritage of people that came off the boat from Ireland and built societies there. In Chicago and in New York, they have on St. Patrick's Day, the St. Patrick's Day parade, the Irish have their party and the green beer and all that type of stuff. And that's celebrated. But still, they're Americans first. And that they're assimilated. And I would even go as far as to say is that Jews in America are assimilated Jews, whether or not they're Hasidic Jews or secular Jews or just Orthodox Jews. They're still assimilated because they believe themselves to be Americans first.
Yeah, and they
don't lose their culture. They don't lose their identity of what makes them themselves, but they're still in the melting pot. It's not multiculturalism. It's multi-ethnicism is one thing, but it's not multiculturalism where you have competing cultures vying for supremacy in the country. There's two different ways of thinking at this. And that's where multiculturalism falls on its face, because it is tribalism, where the melting pot society is all-encompassing. On American money, it says e pluribus unum, which is Latin for out of many, one.
Yeah, but they always take this in the US, so and so. But everybody went through Ellis Island, so
Yeah.
there was some sort of control, and there also has to be a way to get people out if they break the rules. But that's been taken away because everybody can walk in, but if the moment you want to take one person out, it's a riot, and it takes many years to get rid of one problematic guy. So that's unfair for the scene, because everybody can enter, but you cannot get anybody out. And
it's an attack on the civil society.
And of course, culture and so on. Nobody cares about your culture. If you want to celebrate your so-called culture, do it. But if your culture hurts other people, then we don't want it. And if the so-called cultures make this,
and there is a hierarchy in culture.
Yeah, because the problem is that the ethnic people, so-called, because white people apparently they are not ethnic. There is no ethnicity. The ethnic people, they can do whatever they want. They can circumcise people. They can commit human right breaches. That's their right. But we don't have the right to even speak nowadays. So there's this, and this is caused by these not new facts, but these new leftists that have, for some reason, they are also behind this fuck up of Finland when they decided, like Tarja Halonen, the former president, that had said that it would be nice if in Finland the streets would be colored. And why is that? What does it bring us? They brought us this problem by bringing the most primitive cultures like Somalis, Afghanis, and whatever Middle Eastern guys. Why is this? We at least 80% of them are unemployed.
Yeah,
they
are.
Just
and they are unemployable.
Also, so this is complete madness. I don't understand why France and Germany back in the 50s took the migrants to work in the factories. But at least there's some logic in that shit. But look at Netherlands. They took Moroccans. Why? The Nordic countries, they took even worse people. Why is this? What is the use of this? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is of course, if they want to enter the country, and they can apply for visas, and
but before we get too deep, I mean, we know of people. Let's say Mona Walters, Ion Hirsi Ali, and a whole host of other people from that neck of the woods, from that area. We have no problem with. As I have said repeatedly, the color of the ears is inconsequential. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is what travels between those two ears. The thinking that goes on between the ears. Not the color of them, but what goes on between. And I mean, I've run into the most beautiful people, articulate, wonderful, deep thinking, and so forth. But guess what? They've rejected the culture that they came from. They rose above it. They do not like it. They don't want it. When people came to America back then, back in the early 1900s and even in the mid 90s or mid 1900s, they were proud to want to learn English. They wanted to be in America. They accepted the American culture. I mean, if somebody comes to Finland and they say that, well, screw Finns, I hate Finland, or I hate ethnic Finns, I just want to be here and be with the rest of people like me, and my culture is superior to your culture, and one day we will supplant you. What? Are you kidding me? You think about what we're doing now. That compare this to what happened during the Cold War in the Soviet Union. We're bringing in, let's just use this as a comparison. Hardcore Marxists, communists, right? And then along with them comes some dissidents, and then we trash the dissidents, like one of the famous Soviet dissidents that came into the West, that were Solzhenitsyn and whatever. What we do is, Ayaan Hirsi Ali is Soviet, it could be Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and during the Cold War, Solzhenitsyn was trashed by the very people that allowed him into the country. And then he's being proselytized by Marxists in our countries to become a Marxist. I mean, we're forcing these dissidents to be among the very people that they're fleeing. We should be helping dissidents, not people who love that culture, who love the Islamic culture. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, and for example, in Germany, they've actually had to form their own asylum seeker housing centers for Christians or sexual minorities because they are so persecuted among the other asylum seekers.
Yeah.
And also,
it's just not safe in the normal asylum seeker housing centers.
We're doing everything upside down than what we did during the Cold War.
And also in Finland, there's been few articles about this, that if you put everybody in the same asylum center, it causes trouble. But after the migrant crisis, the Finnish staff learned how to segregate people. There's been 2 articles now that anonymously the asylum center staff has said that at the beginning, in the beginning, we didn't know this, but now we know that it's better to put Afghanis in one room and Somalis in another and Arabs in another, and so on. But
they hate each other.
But can you say this to a white guy? Okay, we don't want this. If you bring them here, we will cause trouble. No, we have to accept everything from female circumcision to honor crimes, so-called honor crimes. So they have the rights to do whatever they want, but we have lesser rights, and that's.
Well, isn't that the exact thing that Jussi Halla-aho proved in his Kolmektakku Ilman, the 3 baits to Ilman? Didn't he? Isn't that what he proved? That for those in the non-Finnish audience there, that not understanding what I'm saying, that Jussi Halla-aho, who's now the chairman of the Finns party, fortunately, he in his blog post, in his blog Scripta, he wrote the blog post that challenged the ombudsman, I believe is the guy, or is he a prosecuting attorney?
He was the prosecutor.
Okay, prosecutor. And basically, he posed to him 3 questions. And in each of these 3 questions, there were 6 questions, but 3 questions pertaining to Finns, or instances pertaining to Finns, and 3 to migrants in Finland. Now, what he used was 3 instances where Finns were being treated by the authorities, by the media, by the authorities. Okay? And then now, if it's okay to say this about ethnic Finn, that they're drunks, that it's in their DNA. Basically, that's what they're saying. And then, what if I said that a Somali is predisposed to be X, Y, and Z? Is that crossing the line, Mr. Illman? You know, and we did 3 different instances: factual discrimination against ethnic Finns, and then juxtaposed it with my community. And I was to say to this, would I be in violation of? And guess what? They disingenuously accused him of hate speech, inciting ethnic or religious animosity, whatever.
You said Ilman.
Ilman.
The prosecutor is not an Ilman. His name just happens to be Ilman.
Exactly. No, Mika Ilman, I believe is his name.
Yeah, it's his real name.
And he, he proved basically this, that there is a 2-tier justice system in Finland. That truth is not a defense. Fact and truth is not a defense in Finland. Take that to the bank. That's what I got, and everybody else that followed it closely got from this whole incident. Jussi Halla-aho proved to the Finnish public, those who are listening that ears to hear, that there's no basis for truth and fact in your defense. So when he went before the court, he didn't have any lawyer, and he was just representing himself. Because basically, he's guilty before he walked in the door. Now, if the jackasses in Helsinki bring me ever before the court, I'm not going to have a lawyer. I'm going to just say, I'm already guilty. I'm already guilty. Because you've got the laws on the books, you'll find a crime with crime to fit the law. So,
because the incitement against a minority in Finland.
Yeah, and he said umpteenth number of times in his piece, and I read it in both Finnish and then in English. I think translated by somebody, and he said it repeatedly through this. He goes, "I'm not advocating this. I don't believe this is true. But if I was to say," and they still disingenuously convicted him, and then YLE every time in English mentions the name of Jussi Halla-aho, and they'll say, "Oh, by the way, he was convicted for X, Y, and Z." Every single time. And they use that as a club over this guy each and every time to the outside, international community.
Yeah, and this clubbing works for a small minority of people who are retards, but it doesn't really work because it was 2008 when he wrote this blog, and at that time he wasn't any political figure. He was just a random blogger. But after that, he was
academic too, right?
Yeah, of course, he's a PhD in some Slavic languages. But after that, he got elected in the Helsinki City Council, and after that, he got elected in the Parliament, and after that, he got elected in the European Parliament, and now he's head of the fucking party. So it worked very well, and also he has gotten translated this blog into English, and he has presented this writing to to the group in which he belongs in the European Parliament. Yeah. And the group's head happens to be a Muslim, Kamal something. And the Muslim in the European Union said that, why did you get a sentence for this? This is just logical thinking. You are not inciting any hatred. But in Finland, this paragraph in the law, even if it's called incitement against a minority or against a group or a ethnic group, you don't need to incite any hatred. The text says that anyone who presents facts that portray an ethnic group in a bad light, then you will get a €300 fine. So anybody can get it, unless you speak badly about whites. If you say that a Finn, like this newspaper saying that Finnish are genetically
Presupposed to yeah,
that they get drunk and they kill people. This is okay. This is fine. You can say anything about Finns because Finns are a majority. But 5 million, there are 16,000 Somalis. The 16th, I mean, there in Somalia there's 20 million of Somalis. They are the minority, but in Finland, the Finnish people, they are a majority. Okay,
I believe
there's no fucking logic in there.
You know, I
Nothing.
believe, you know, we really shouldn't accept, you know, the thinking or the premise that Muslims in Finland are a minority because they belong to a major majority, a big, huge group. And I believe that Muslims belong to a political party. It's called Islam. Whether or not it's registered in any country, their ideology is political. And talking about their ideology should be fair game because it is a political ideology. And I reserve the right to mock, to condemn, to criticize not only political authority, but also religious authority. And I'm a Christian. And I've got atheist friends, and you know, we respect each other, we're great friends, and you know, I do not seek to victimize anybody who says anything about my belief system. Go for it. Go for it. You should have that right. And you know, that's one of the basic of human rights, freedom of speech. But Muslims, they belong to a political party called Islam. And when I speak about Islam, I'm speaking about it in the most political sense. It's not, I couldn't care less how many times they bang their head on the floor, what hand they use to wipe themselves, what they do, you know, in their rituals. I couldn't care less. Leave me alone. But when it touches my life in the public square, that's when I become concerned. And when it does, Islam is a public square ideology, and it's political. And so I think it's fair game for especially Islam that you should be able to criticize it, mock it, do whatever you want with it. Falls within the realm of political speech.
And we have been going on for a couple of hours, so maybe it's time to start to wrap things up and let you get on with your evening.
Has it been 2 hours already?
Yeah, it has been. It always we always get overtime. Like it's so difficult to keep it in like 1 hour.
Yeah.
There's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
But let's take a couple of last questions, if you don't mind. So, what do you see in the future for Finland? Do you think Finland will be able to change its course with this immigration issue?
Well, I think a lot has to happen with the Finns party. Like this is the dynamic between what the blue faction or whatever they call themselves, and then was it the blue future or whatever that, and then the Finns party. The dynamic between them. Do they actually play off each other and cause good politics to flow from it? They've all, you know, the Finns party, good, bad, or ugly, they have actually affected the political dialogue in this country. And in a consensus-driven Finland, you know, that's a big thing. And I think they've managed to do a lot, even under the tutelage of Timo Soini, but mostly because of Jussi Halla and others. Then in Sweden, you have the Sweden Democrats. What happens with them as well is going to reverberate back to Finland. Well, it's just my own armchair analysis, but I think that the Sweden Democrats will have what happens in their political dynamic in the upcoming years is going to have ramifications here. And so if Finns are ready to swallow everything from Sweden, well, why not after the Sweden Democrats get into government, whatever. Why not follow some of their policies? Who knows? Something like that might happen.
Yeah, I really hope the nationalist movement keeps growing, because you can see it all over in the Western world that nationalism is drawing more people in, and these nationalist movements are getting more powerful. And the same thing, of course, is going on in Finland, but it's just so unorganized that that's a problem, that there is no real leadership, there's no real flag people could get under.
Yeah.
And
in the United States, though, it's basically the Tea Party, which is just conservative constitutionalism. That's who I am. I'm a conservative. I'm not a nationalist. I'm not a populist. I have nothing against the Finnish identity, patriotism here in this country. Finns for Finland, Finland for Finns. I get that. And when it comes to the American perspective, nationalist populism is kind of like an oxymoron. That would be another subject for another day. But I think that the Tea Party is still a very invigorated source and a political power. And I believe that they still have what it takes to have a lot more. We'll see what happens with Trump and stuff. But the movement is still alive there as well.
Yeah, so we have been talking here with Kenneth from Tundra Tabloids. For those of you who haven't been here from the very beginning, so Kenneth has this nationalist blog at tundratabloids.com, and over there he writes about the immigration issue, Islamization, and other news you won't hear in the mainstream media about the Finland and the other Nordic countries. So you should all check that out. I'll put a link to the blog in the description. And
I would more classify it as a conservative blog, but I won't mix it. That's okay.
Will you be?
We're on the same page with many things. Yeah.
Will you be on Independence Day in Helsinki?
Usually I'm with the missus here.
Ah, okay. But we could have
watching the ball with all the silly gowns.
We'll be in Helsinki on December the 6th, so
okay.
We could have met there and talked more, but
we'll have to arrange something. Who knows?
Yeah, of course you are welcome back on our channel, but you need to buy a microphone.
Okay.
Because the sound, you understand.
Okay.
But thank you very much, Kenneth, for coming to talk with us.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, we've had a very good time.
Okay, take care, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
bye
bye
everybody.
to audience.
Okay.